I'm sorry. I muted you, Gary. I'm sorry. I missed.
There you go. I'm sorry. All right, no biggie. All right, here we go. You ready? Here you go. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech Adon L'chol hashalom. Ki atahu melech Adon L'chol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov beinecha levorech et amcha Yisrael b'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Baruch atah Adonai Hamevorech et amo Yisrael B'Shalom. Yeah, baby.
Woo!
Yeah.
Sounded fantastic as always.
Thank you
As
very,
always.
thank you very kindly.
My gosh.
Thank you. Toda Rabba Achi. And Dr. Ed for the request.
Well, thank you. I really needed that today.
Nice.
You got it.
That's
You
awesome.
got it.
Thanks for the musical healing. Who would like to start the Haftarah in Judges?
I can read it.
Thank you, Monique. So this is in Judges, and after Israel is settled in the land of Canaan, and but they don't really have peace at this period of time. So let's have at it.
Jephthah of Gilead was a mighty warrior. Though he was the son of a prostitute, Gilead had fathered him. Gilead's wives had sons. When they grew up, they drove Jephthah out, saying to him, "You are not going to inherit our father's property because you are the son of another woman." So Jephthah fled from his brothers and settled in the area of Tob, where some outlaws joined him and went out raiding with him. Time passed, and the Ammonites went to war against Israel. When the Ammonites attacked Israel, the elders of Gilead went to bring Jephthah back from the area of Tob. They said to Jephthah, "Come lead us in battle against Ammon." Jephthah said to the elders of Gilead, "You hated me. You drove me out of my father's house. Now when you're in trouble, why do you come to me?" The elders of Gilead answered him, "But we have not turned back to you. If you come with us to fight the Ammonites, you will be in command of all Gilead." Jephthah replied to the elders of Gilead, "If you do bring me back to lead the fight against Ammon, and the Eternal hands him over to me, I will be your commander." The elders said to Jephthah, "The Eternal will witness between us if we do not act as you say." Jephthah went with the elders of Gilead, and the people confirmed him as their commander and chief. In the presence of the Eternal at Mitzpah, Jephthah repeated all the terms of the agreement. Jephthah sent messengers to the king of the Ammonites saying, "What quarrel lies between us that you have come to my land to fight me?" The king of Ammon said to Jephthah's emissaries, "Because when Israel went up from Egypt, they took away my land from the Arnon River to the Jacob River as far as the Jordan River. Now give it back to us peacefully." Jephthah sent still more messengers to the king of the Ammonites, saying, "Thus says Jephthah, Israel took no land from Moab and Ammon. When they went up from Egypt, Israel traveled through the wilderness to the Sea of Reeds until they reached Kadesh. Then Israel sent a message to the king of Edom, asking to be allowed to pass through his land. The king of Edom refused. They also sent a message to the king of Moab, but he too refused. So Israel remained in Kadesh. Then they went by way of the wilderness, making a circle around the lands of Edom and Moab, keeping east of Moab. They camped on the other side of the Arnon River, Moab's border, but they never crossed that border. Then Israel sent messengers to the Amorite king Sihon, king of Heshbon, saying, "Please let us cross your land to your own." But Sihon did not believe the Israelites would merely pass through his territory. So he mustered his army and camped at Jahaz and attacked Israel. But the Eternal, the God of Israel, put Sihon and his army into the hands of Israel, who defeated them. In that way, Israel took over the land of the Amorites who lived in the territory. They took possession of the territory of the Amorites from the Arnon River to the Jabbok River, from the wilderness all the way to the Jordan River. And now that the Eternal, the God of Israel, dispossessed the Amorites in favor of Israel, the people of the Eternal, are you going to take it over? Do you not hold whatever your God Shemosh has given you as a holding? So we will hold whatever land the Eternal, our God, has given to us. Are you really any better than Balak, son of Zippor, king of Moab? Did he dare contend with Israel? Did he dare wage war against them? 300 years Israel has been settled in Heshbon and Aroer, and the towns surrounded them, and the cities along the Arnon River. Why didn't you try to take them back all that time? No, I have done you no wrong. It is you who are wronging me by making war on me. The Eternal, the Judge, will decide this day between the people of Israel and the people of Ammon. But the king of Ammon paid no attention to the message Jephthah had sent to him. Then the Spirit of the Eternal settled on Jephthah. He went through Gilead and Manasseh, passing Mizpeh of Gilead, and from there he passed to the army of Ammon. Jephthah made this vow to the Eternal: "If you hand the people of Ammon over to me, then I will offer to the Eternal as a whole burnt offering, whatever comes out of my house to meet me when I come home safe from the Ammonites." Jephthah then crossed over to do battle against the Ammonites, and the Eternal put them into his grasp. He routed them with a terrible slaughter from Aroer as far as Minah, all the way to Abel Karamim, 20 towns. So the Ammonites were subdued by the people of Israel.
All right, very nice. So, any questions? One thing that pops.
What is this time period? Is it about 600 BCE?
Well after that, a little before that.
What were you saying, Dr. Ed?
I don't know, but I don't know when. I don't know when. But this was 300 or 400 years after they crossed into Israel. So this is late.
Right. They're already in Israel for like 300 years, right, as you say.
300 years.
So it's a good question.
Doesn't it say up at the top? Doesn't it say?
It doesn't say.
The book of Joshua's
After
conquest.
Centuries after Joshua's conquest.
Now the question I have is this a prophecy? Is this a prophecy in saying that 200 years from now are the Palestinians or the Arabs going to say to Israel, 300 years ago, you came into Israel, and we're going to fight you, and this is what's going to happen. So is this a prophecy where the Torah is going to speak? We're going to see something again, just like this.
I don't know. Don't we see this every like 10, 15 years or so? I don't know.
Sort of.
In the Torah, you see it like constantly. It's like as they're heading to Israel. Like they have to fight through every, and it seems like it's still like that, like to survive. Like, even once you're there, you have to fight to get there. Then once you're there, you got to fight to stay there.
It seems that that's all there is. I mean, my feeling is all there is about our Jewish faith is we have to fight all the time for everything. That's
Yep.
what I've seen throughout history.
Yep.
You're reading from Torah and from the, we're always fighting. I mean, for our beliefs. I mean, to exist is what I'm trying to say. I don't see this any more unusual than any other passage, because this happens continually, and it's always like we have to prove our survival.
That's a good point. It's a good point. I mean, and plus,
We're doing it all the time. Right now, we're doing it. Look at this, more anti-Semitism. We have to prove that we're okay. And we don't, you know, that people don't have to be against us. It's happening all the time, you know.
I know.
It kind of upsets me, but it's the truth, you know.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. It's true. It is true.
We're always doing this, always.
So what's the answer? I mean, what's the answer? It's like I mean, I think, well, one of the issues that I'm looking at too is that when Monique was reading, it's always God that gives things in, like, either God blesses the war and it's always like, okay, then we'll succeed. If God's with us, we'll succeed. If God's not with us, we're not going to succeed. So again, in this way, if I take the violence out of it, it becomes so much relying on God for everything, right? Like, we got to stay faithful, or God will be with us, that kind of thing. And then we'll do what God wants us to do. That's the other aspect of you know, how I read this Torah and these passages. We will do what God wants us to do, and the struggle to do that is so amazing and so profound to me.
But there are Meshuggahs that take that another way, like people that crashed the planes on 9/11,
right?
In their twisted minds, you know. You know, whose side is God on? You know.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's not fun. I mean, it's not. I mean, it's. I don't know. You know, we could look at it all different kind of ways.
I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm concerned about what's going on in the Supreme Court more than Congress right now. They're saying things like it's okay for people to pray. All the things that we've been talking about, separation from church and state, seems to be completely falling apart right now. I'm very concerned about this. I don't know if anybody else is, but I think the Supreme Court is so political and religious that it's not really what's it called? It's not objective.
It's not objective. It's not independent.
Not objective at all anymore. Yeah. I'm really. I don't know. I don't know why other people aren't upset about this. I'm very upset about this.
No, you have a good point. It's definitely we've seen a lot of. Man, we've seen a lot of things. Yeah, it's I know it just seems like it just in the last 2 or 3 months, things have gotten really nuts in that regard. I mean, I'm not saying that kneeling and praying on a high school field is against the law either. You know, it's like it's a fine line, but. I don't know.
But you see, what it is it doesn't matter if he wanted to pray, but when he has other people do it, it becomes, because it's a public place, okay? And that's the problem. It's not about anybody can pray anytime. That's not a problem. It's when you're forcing people that they don't even have a choice. They're saying, oh, we're all going to pray now. You understand what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm with you. You know, and he did invoke.
What's your thoughts on it, Ed? I'm curious.
Well, first of all, you know, there are a lot of people in the Bible Belt who think we're heathens and that the Supreme Court is just supporting the thoughts of the Christian Midwest and the Christian South. So it's, you know, we think as people who come from very progressive and areas that this is terrible, and that the Constitution prevents this. On the other hand, according to our Supreme Court, the Constitution allows this prayer. it's very interesting what's going to happen. And what I'm surely going to see is that when a couple of Supreme Court justices leave, like this crazy guy Thomas,
Oh
who
God,
has a
he's
history,
nuts.
who has
He's
a
nuts.
history of womanizing. When he's gone, the Democrats are going to put somebody in, and we're going to see Roe versus Wade all over again, and it's going to come back up to place. It's just like when we decided that alcohol was very bad for the country, and prohibition came in, and as an amendment to the Constitution, we couldn't drink liquor anymore. All of the history of Malden and the history of that part of that didn't mean anything. They never stopped drinking alcohol, and then they reversed it. They reversed it in another amendment to the Constitution. So I hate to say it, but this is going to go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And this country right now is very divided. And I don't know what's going to happen. It's very divided in many ways, race-wise, in terms of intolerance, in terms of hate. And I see some things coming back that are going to change some of this, because this can't continue.
Yeah, that's new to me. I thought they were much more.
14%. So, and those 14% have been discriminated against.
Yes.
And on the other hand, there's just so much to this. It's not an easy issue. It's just not African Americans. We look at
it's Asians. Look at that Asian hate.
Asians and the indigenous people in this country.
Right. The indigenous people,
and many immigrants. I probably in the minority, but we've got to get a handle around our illegals in this country. There are people who are so misinformed about that, and so was I for quite a while but we got to figure this out. Now, we're not alone. We're not alone in this problem. You pick out a country, pick out Sweden. Sweden right now, which 40 years ago was extremely non-diverse, uniform, and they decided to become a diverse country, and now they're going through this tremendous problem. So we have a lot of problems here, and we have a president who can't figure it out, and we have a vice president who is a moron, and we have a split Senate and a split Congress, and now we have a very split Supreme Court. I don't know.
Why do you feel the vice president is a moron?
She's worse than a moron. That's a compliment for her.
Oh my God! All right, we got to stop this discussion. Okay. We got to get on to the Torah. But I will say this: the answer is how we got founded, and I know it wasn't good for the indigenous people. But the answer
and look at this passage here. It's the same thing. It was so. The problem here is this, that I don't know where we need to go, but we all have to stop hate. We have to stop
brother and sisterly love. Brother and sisterly love. Like Philadelphia, it was, and granted, it was founded by a bunch of old white men. But the one thing that they had that I thought was revolutionary was the idea that they didn't want a king. And why was this? Because they read their Bible so deep and it was so ingrained in them, they said to themselves, look at what happened to the Israelites once they got a king, which was the first king was Saul. They said that's when all hell broke loose. They were really doing okay until they asked for a king. So we're not going to have a king. And then they also said we're not going to have a one religion that goes over everybody. No, we're not. Everyone's going to have their own religion, and we're going to get along. Why? Because we respect others' differences. And that's the way out. There's nothing new under the sun. But this country, I mean, yes, the indigenous people, the black people, the history there is really bad. Absolutely bad. However, this country was founded as a nation of many people. Many people got kicked out of their nations and they came here. So if we can't do it the way it was meant to be done, right now is a real big turning point, because we're either going to love each other or we're really going to be in dire straits. I mean, we haven't even
and you know, and I think, you know, it's important that we are finally figuring this out, that we enough, you know, look at who the Pilgrims came to Plymouth. And what's the first thing they did? They became totally intolerant. They became totally intolerant. They escaped this and they became totally intolerant. You know, we escaped, you know.
And they started whacking people with the Bible. Here, read this.
Well, it was that, you know, and it's terrible. There's still, you know, and I'm, in some cases I'm very, very happy that you know, that, and then I'm sad also that, you know, that it had to come to this. But, you know, there is intolerance, and we have to fix that in this country. We have to.
Yeah.
But there's still, look, we had a hate group walk through Boston on Thursday. On Thursday, white.
I know.
Yeah.
I think it's terrible. I don't even know how they can allow to come in. I don't get it, you know.
Yeah. They came right in Malden. They went right through Malden for some. They took the orange line in.
They went to a lot of places.
The funniest thing is like seeing these racists in the Orange Line T station. Like, when's the next train? It's like, what?
But you know what's interesting is that they hide their faces, which I think is interesting.
And they hid their tattoos.
If they really were strong, they would not hide. And that to me is a real, you know, they're
cowards. They're cowards.
Cowards, yeah, they're cowards. And
all right, let's talk about Moses and Aaron. Okay, who wants to read?
I'll read. Are we starting from 19?
19:1, yes.
Okay, good. The Eternal One spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, "This is the ritual law that the Eternal has commanded. Instruct the Israelite people to bring you a red cow without blemish, in which there is no defect and on which no yoke has been laid. You shall give it to Eleazar the priest. It shall be taken outside the camp and slaughtered in his presence. Eleazar the priest shall take some of its blood with its finger and sprinkle it 7 times toward the front of the tent of meeting. The cow shall be burned in his sight. Its hide, flesh, and blood shall be burned, its dung included." And yes, that's horrible. "And the priest shall take cedar wood, hyssop, and crimson stuff, and throw them into the fire, consuming the cow. The priest shall wash his garments and bathe his body in water. After that, the priest may re-enter the camp, but he shall be impure until evening. The one who performed the burning shall also wash those garments in water, bathe in water, and be impure until evening. Another party who is pure shall gather up the ashes of the cow and deposit them outside the camp in a pure place to be kept for water of lustration for the Israelite community. It is for purgation. The one who gathers up the ashes of the cow shall also wash those clothes and be impure until evening." What is the whole thing about being impure till evening? Why aren't they impure? You know, and why are they pure in evening? Why not? I don't get it.
After you wash your clothes and bathe.
Oh, I see that. Okay, that I understand. This shall be a
bathe, but it says wash. Oh, I'm sorry. But it says, you know, it always says you shall wash your clothes.
So until it's dry or something. Okay. This shall be a permanent law for the Israelites and for the strangers who reside among you. Those who touch the corpse of any human being shall be impure for 7 days. They shall purify themselves with the ashes on the 3rd day and the 7th day, and then be pure if they fail to purify themselves on the 3rd and 7th days. They shall not be pure. Those who touch a corpse, the body of a person who has died, and do not purify themselves, defile the Eternal's tabernacle. Those persons shall be cut off from Israel. Since the water of lustration was not dashed on them, they remain impure. Their impurity is still upon them. You know, it's interesting. They said, I want to read something that I thought was interesting. It said, those who touch the corpse, okay, is impure. And then they say, those who touch because the body of a person was down. Wait, one more thing. It's not those. What was it I read? It was first they were talking about a corpse, and then they said if the corpse is dead, which of course the corpse is dead. I couldn't, let me see where I read that. Those who touch the corpse.
Yeah, you're right. The 13 is number 13.
Yeah, those who touch, of course, the body of a person who has died. Well, of course, we know the person has died. He's a corpse. I'm so surprised they said that. Isn't that interesting? That first they just say, okay, you touch a corpse, you're impure. Then they say, those who touch a corpse, the body of the person who has died, we know he's died because he's a corpse.
But that's like the English translation. Like, I mean, I don't know in Hebrew if it
I see. I get it. Okay. Those little things kind of bother me once in a while, but that's just me. Don't worry about it. All right. So now where do we go? Remain pure. Okay. This is the ritual when a person dies in a tent. Whoever enters the tent and whoever is in the tent shall be impure for 7 days. And every open vessel with no lid fastened down shall be impure. And in the open, anyone who touches a person who was killed or who died naturally, or human bone or a grave shall be impure for 7 days. Some of the ashes from the fire of purgation shall be taken for the impure person, and fresh water shall be added to them in a vessel. Another party who is pure shall take hyssop, dip it in the water, and sprinkle on the tent and all the vessels and people who were there, or on the one who touched the bones of the person who was killed or died naturally, or the grave. The pure person shall sprinkle it upon the impure person on the 3rd day, and on the 7th day, thus purifying that person by the 7th day. The one being purified shall then wash those clothes and bathe in water, and at nightfall shall be pure. If any party who has become impure fails to undergo purification, the person shall be cut off from the congregation. I just want you to mention that hyssop, I have worked with hyssop as a aromatherapy when I did massage, and hyssop is a very, very strong, pungent scent. So I can understand why they use it because it really is strong. It would clean out a lot of stuff. And hyssop is used a lot therapeutic wise for your lungs and stuff to breathe better. Interesting.
That is interesting.
Just want to throw in a little knowledge, I know.
But it's
I only have a little knowledge,
Right. I actually read a little bit about this too, because there was one commentary that was saying when they burned the red heifer like that, and then they added those ingredients, they were actually making like lye, like a really crude soap. Yeah. And I don't know, Dr. Ed might know about this better. But.
Well, it's kind of interesting. Some of the ashes from the fire of purgation shall be taken from the impure person, and fresh water shall be added to them in a vessel. All of this forces people to wash. That's all it does here. It forces people to wash themselves. You cover someone from hyssop, you dip it in water. They got to clean themselves. Right, so what happens here is this is forcing people to wash. Guess what? In today's medicine, the most important number one thing in epidemiology is washing your hands. Right. And this is a forcing of washing your hands.
Yeah. Which is very good. It is very important in that way. Okay, so where are we? Okay, and the congregation, for having defiled the eternal sanctuary, the water of lustration was not dashed on that person who is impure. That shall be for them a law for all time. Further, the one who sprinkled the water of lustration shall wash those clothes, and whoever touches the water of lustration shall be impure until evening. Whatever that impure person touches shall be impure, and the person who touches the impure one shall be impure until evening.
Didn't we just go through this with COVID? Exactly this. Exactly this in COVID. Isn't this we just did?
That's right. That's true. The Israelites arrived in a body of the wilderness of Zin on the first new moon, and the people stayed at Kadesh. Miriam died there and was buried there. The community was without water, and they joined against Moses and Aaron. Now, I want to ask you, that's a very important line. The community was without water. Was that because Miriam died? Because she was the one who brought the water all the time.
I believe that many commentaries make that connection. Like Miriam died.
Yeah. Because all of a sudden, when she died, there was no water. Right? That's very important. Okay.
Yeah, let me see. Let me just see if they say that underneath.
Okay. Let me see. Yeah.
Miriam died. It's over here.
No official mourning period was observed. It doesn't say anything about water, though. Okay.
Or
All right.
rock. And then the
was
rock,
wondering.
the rock.
Okay.
You know, it
All
says
right.
no official mourning period was for Aaron. In the Torah, it said that they mourned for 30 days when he died. I don't
That's what I
understand
thought too.
that.
This is where
Yeah.
the Haftarah and the Torah is
The
the law.
Miriam didn't have a mourning period for Miriam, but that's when there was a lack of water. Like after she died is when water
After
seemed to
she died,
disappear.
there was no sea because she was the one who was bringing the
But
water.
when Aaron died, after he was gathered among his people, they mourned for 30 days. I don't know
I
why
don't
here
see
it
that.
says
So
that they
there's
wouldn't.
well, we've talked about the inconsistency of the Torah and how it's been written in different times, and I think
Wait,
that's
no official mourning period was observed. Oh wait, no, as would be the case for Aaron. Oh, so no, I'm just reading it wrong,
I
right?
understand now. Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
It's a weird
Sorry.
phrase. Yeah, they phrase
Never mind.
Yeah.
Oh, Archie!
Okay.
Here's your beer, Archie. Leave it there, Edith, huh?
Oh, God. For a minute, I thought we had a new member here. Okay. Okay. Where am I? I completely lost where I am. The community-
number 2, yeah.
Oh, yeah. The community was without water and they joined against Moses and Aaron. The people quarreled with Moses, saying, if only we had perished when our brothers perished at the instant of the Eternal. Why have you brought the Eternal's congregation to the wilderness for us and our beasts to die there? Okay, now they're whining again. I hear it.
Yeah.
Why do you make us leave Egypt to bring us to this wretched place, a place with no grain or figs or vines, no pomegranates? There's not even water to drink. Moses and Aaron came away from the congregation to the entrance of the tent of meeting and fell on their faces. The presence of the Eternal appeared to them, and the Eternal One spoke to Moses, saying, you and your brother Aaron take the rod and assemble the community, and before their very eyes order the rock to yield its water. Thus you shall produce water for them from the rock and provide drink for the congregation and their beasts. Moses took the rod from before the Eternal as he had been commanded. Moses and Aaron assembled the congregation in front of the rock, and he said to them, listen, you rebels, shall we get water for you out of the... Listen, you rebels, shall we get water for you out of this rock? And Moses raised his hand and struck the rock twice with his rod. Out came copious water, and the community and their beasts drank. So they're such big whinies who whine all the time. But the Eternal One said to Moses and Aaron, because you did not trust me enough to affirm my sanctity in the sight of the Israel people, therefore you shall not lead this congregation to the land that I have given them. Those are the waters of Meribah, meaning that the Israelites quarreled with the Eternal, whose sanctity was affirmed through them. From Kadesh, Moses sent messages to the king of Edom. Thus says your brother Israel, you know all the hardships that have befallen us, that our ancestors went down to Egypt, that we dwelt in Egypt a long time, and that the Egyptians dealt harshly with us and our ancestors. We cried to the Eternal who heard our plea, sending a messenger who freed us from Egypt. Now we are in Kadesh, the town on the border of your territory. Allow us then to cross your country. We will not pass through fields or vineyards, and we will not drink water from wells. We will follow the king's highway, turning off neither to the right nor to the left until we have crossed your territory. But Edom answered him, you shall not pass through us, else we will go out against you with the sword. We will keep to the beaten track, the Israelites said to them, and if we or our cattle drink your water, we will pay for it. We ask only for passage on foot. It is but a small matter. But they replied, you shall not pass, though. And Edom went out against them in heavy force, strongly armed. So Edom would not let Israel cross their territory, and Israel turned away from them. Setting out from Kadesh, the Israelites arrived in the body of Mount Hor. At Mount Hor, on the boundary of the land of Edom, the Eternal One said to Moses and Aaron, let Aaron be gathered to his kin. He has not entered the land that I have assigned to the Israelite people, because you disobeyed my command about the waters of Meribah. Take Aaron and his son Eleazar and bring them up on Mount Hor. Strip Aaron of his vestments and put them on his son Eleazar. There Aaron shall be gathered unto the dead. Moses did as the Eternal did command. They ascended Mount Hor in the sight of the whole community. Moses stripped Aaron of his vestments and put them on his son Eleazar. and Aaron died there on the summit of the mountain. When Moses and Eleazar came down from the mountain, the whole community knew that Aaron had breathed his last. All the house of Israel bewailed Aaron 30 days. When the Canaanite king of Arad, who dwelt in the Negev, learned that Israel was coming by the way of Atharim, he engaged Israel in battle and took some of them captive. Then Israel made a vow to the Eternal and said, if you deliver this people into our land, we will prescribe their time. We'll proscribe their towns. The Eternal heeded Israel's plea and delivered up the Canaanites, and they and their cities were proscribed, so that place was named Hormah. They set out from Mount Hor by the way of Sea of Reeds to skirt the land of Edom. But the people grew restive on the journey, and the people spoke against God and against Moses. Why did you make us leave? They keep on saying this. Why? They keep on doing this all the time. Why do you make us leave Egypt to die in the wilderness? There is no bread and no water. We have come to loathe this miserable food. The Eternal sent serpents against the people. They bit the people, and many of the Israelites died. The people came to Moses and said, we sinned.
It's interesting stuff. It says here that the Eternal sent serpents against the people, and
right.
There's and some others. Yeah. Go ahead.
But I'm already finished this. I said the people came to Moses and said we sinned, and I need to go up.
Right, but I'm just saying that in some commentaries they some of the rabbis say that really the Eternal didn't send the serpents. What he did was he pulled away his covering of protection from the Israelites. I don't know if that's more Talmud.
I don't know. We'd have to know what the Hebrew says, because I don't know. Right. But I have to go up.
All right. Okay, Ruthie, hang on.
But I want to know what we sinned. The whole community knew. Oops, what happened?
By speaking against the Eternal. You're up.
We sinned by speaking against the Eternal, and against you intercede with the Eternal to take away the serpents from us. Well, I don't know. I think he did send the serpents. I disagree with you. And Moses interceded for the people. Then the Eternal One said to Moses, make a seraph figure and mount it on a standard. And anyone who was bitten, who then looks at it, shall recover. See, they did get bitten. Moses made a copper serpent and mounted it on a standard. And when bitten by a serpent, anyone who looked at the copper serpent would recover. That's interesting. That's almost like idol worship.
Well, yeah. It's also that medical. It's the medical symbol that we talk about.
Oh, yeah. You're right. I forgot about that.
What's it called again, Gary? What is it?
Caduceus.
Caduceus.
Yeah.
Caduceus. Okay. Yeah. Right. Okay. All right. Israel.
Do you want to take a break, Ruthie, or you're raring to go tonight? I'm just wondering if anybody else wants to read.
I'm not tired for some reason, but I get tired unless somebody else wants to read.
How much more do we have here?
I think there's maybe two more pages.
Okay.
Do you want me to stop?
No, you're on a roll. Why don't we go? I didn't hear anybody.
No, Ed, if you want to take over?
No. I have something to say at the end.
Okay.
No, go ahead, please.
All right. The Israelites marched on and encamped at Oboth. They set out from Oboth and encamped at Abarim in the wilderness bordering on Moab to the east. From where they set out and encamped at the Wadi Zered. From there they set out and encamped beyond the Arnon, that is in the wilderness that extends from the territory of the Amorites. For the Arnon is the boundary of Moab between Moab and the Amorites. Therefore, the book of the wars in the Eternal speaks of Wahab in Supa and the waters, the Arnon, with its tributary waters stretched along the settled country of Ar, hugging the territory of Moab. And from there to Beer, which is the well where the Eternal One said to Moses, assemble the people, that I may give them water. Then Israel sang the song. What is the Hebrew song? I'm curious. Eli, Baal. I'm trying to see. What is that song, guys?
Eli, I don't know.
Okay.
It says Ali, not Ali.
Okay, it's not a song. It's not a song that we've ever seen. Okay.
No.
So it says, spring up, O well, sing to it, the well which the chieftains dug, which the nobles of the people started with maces with their own staffs. And from Midbar to Matana, and from Matana to Nachalil, and from Nachalil to Bamoth, and from Bamoth to the valley that is in the country of Moab, at the peak of Pisgah, overlooking the wasteland. Israel now sent messengers to Sihon, king of the Amorites, saying, let me pass through your country. We will not turn off into fields or vineyards. We will not drink water from wells. We will follow the king's highway until we have crossed your territory. But Sihon would not let Israel pass through his territory. Sihon gathered all his troops and went out against Israel in the wilderness. He came to Jahaz and engaged Israel in a battle. Boy, Israel keeps on getting into battles. But Israel put them to the sword and took possession of their land from the Ammon to the Jabal, as far as Az of the Ammonites. For Az marked the boundary of Ammonites. Israel took all those towns, and Israel settled in all the towns of the Amorites, in Heshbon and all its dependencies. Now Heshbon was the city of Sihon, king of the Amorites, who had fought against the former king of Moab, and taken all his land from him as far as the Arnon. Therefore, the bards would recite, come to Heshbon, firmly built and well-founded in Sihon city. For fire went forth from Heshbon, flame from Sihon city, consuming Ar of Moab, the lords of Bamoth by the Arnon. Woe to you, O Moab! You are undone, O people of Chemosh. His sons are rendered fugitive, and his daughters captive by an Amorite king, Sihon. Yet we have cast them down utterly, Heshbon along with Dibon. We have brought desolation at Nophah, which is Ad, by Medeba. I don't know what all this means. So Israel occupied the land of the Amorites. Then Moses sent to spy out Jazer, and they captured its dependencies and dispossessed the Amorites who were there. Is that it?
I don't know. Let me see. Oh, there we go. One more paragraph.
Okay. They marched on and went up the road to Bashan, and King Og of Bashan with all his troops came out to Edrei to engage them in battle. But the Eternal One said to Moses, do not fear him, for I give him all his troops and his land into your hand. You shall do to him as you did to Sihon, king of the Amorites, who dwelt in Heshbon. They defeated him and his sons and all the troops until no remnant was left of him, and they took possession of his country. The Israelites then marched on and encamped in the steppes of Moab across the Jordan from Jericho. Wow, that's a lot of travel they were doing. A lot of traveling.
That was some good reading, Ruth. Woo, woo, woo.
Thank you, Ruth. Now, Mike, while we're reading this, if you don't remind me, give me a minute.
Okay.
You know, we started off with, we cannot allow in this country 14% of people to be held in a racist situation. Black Lives Matter. We can't allow anti-Semitism. We can't allow so many other small groups. That's half the country. That's why I said 14% of this country is made up of people in which these white supremacists hate. We got to get rid of this hate. If you look at all of this today, what we saw, it wasn't that Moses and the Israelites killed the people of Moab because they were a different race or whatever. All of this killing, all of this thing was because of geography. It was all geography. And the more that I read about this, these wars went over geography, not the fact that they were different than they was people. They had the geography. The Israelites wanted that geography, and that's what happened here. So even in the Torah, there was not hate because of racism. There wasn't hate because they looked different. There was the fact that we want your land and we're gonna fight you because of the land. And I think that's really important. It's important.
Well, that's happening with Russia right now with Ukraine. He just wants the land.
Because Ukrainians and the Russians, they are different, but they're the same. They look the same.
I know.
I know.
And the same when the settlers came over here.
Similar languages too, right?
It was all because of land. It wasn't because of religion. Well, this is,
No.
well, look, my God is pretty powerful, and he's not an idol, and we're going to slay you. But it's not because you're bad. It's because we want your land. And even the Torah makes that this decision. What I see now in this country, and you got me wound up, is the fact that there is a group of people in the United States who want to do harm things and want to discriminate against, what are we talking about? 50% of the country. So I'm really wound up. I'm really sad. I'm really
Yes.
sad. To see all this racial imbalance, to see all of this anti-Semitism. I see, there's this anti-Arab in this country, you name it. We have a huge group of people here from the area around India and Pakistan, and there are people from the middle from the from Middle America, from Central America, and this has got to stop. And I don't see a solution to it. That 50% is looks down upon 50% in this country.
It's sad.
So it's sad, and that's why I wanted to make to add up the numbers. 14 and 3 is the Jews are 3, and you can have Arabs 2, and
I thought we were 1%. I didn't even think we were 3. I thought we were 1.
Well, I think it's 3% now. But the bottom line here is that I'm a real optimist when it comes to this country, but I'm demoralized. I'm demoralized of seeing, filling up my gas tank at $90 and seeing racists walk. I didn't even know they came to Malden. And this isn't the first time. Malden seems to be the place where people come, for hate.